I'm Grace Wright, and when I was 19, I was diagnosed with a stage 2 thyroid cancer. And it took about 6 months from the time that I was diagnosed to the end of my treatment. I'm sometimes nervous talking about my story because I don't think that I have an especially special or unique story. And I definitely think that other people have been through much more than I have. And at the same time, I think it's really important that we all do talk to each other because we all need to know that we have shared a similar experience. And there's always some little nugget that we can pull from each other. And I think it's really important that everyone in the healthcare system helps find a way for us to find each other or just to hear about each other's stories because we feel less alone. It helps us to feel a little more normal, especially if at the time that you're diagnosed, no one around you has been through something like that. And when you hear someone smiling as they tell their story, you think that, okay, maybe it's not going to be as scary as it might be otherwise if you're facing it completely alone and only had sad stories to think about. So it's definitely going to be up to the doctors, the nurses, the cancer support centers out there to share the ideas. Oh shit, I can't. Oh guys, I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight thought. So it's. You want me to keep going? Okay. So we need to find each other. We need to hear each other's stories. We need to know that it's not just bad stuff out there. Or if the stories are bad, that if you hear someone telling their story with a smile, then it might be okay. And it's definitely going to be up to the doctors, the nurses, anyone who is a healthcare provider at any stage in your treatment process to tell you about the resources that are out there so that you know how to find it, you know how to be able to hear about other people's stories. And even if you don't learn a specific piece of information that is relevant to your particular treatment, I think just knowing that you're not alone is going to really help. So, thinking about being diagnosed as a young person and what's going on in your life around you, it's nothing else stops. And just because you've been diagnosed, it does become the big thing for you at the time. And you almost feel like you're in this weird little tunnel where everything and everyone around you is still going at their normal speed, but you're in a bit of a time warp and almost an event warp and a life warp because you've got this thing to deal with and you're just changed a little bit and you're thinking about different things, and sometimes that warp almost makes you end up at the end as if it were almost a wormhole, and you're propelled into this advanced stage of life experience. And so sometimes you feel like you've been left behind because your friends have, maybe gone further in school, or they've been dating and maybe even gotten married or started having kids, and you're left behind. Well, I shouldn't say you're left behind, but you find yourself a little bit behind that process because you had some other things to deal with, like recovering from surgeries and radiation and not being angry anymore, and just trying to get back into your healthier headspace. And so you're playing a little bit of catch up with school and life and career and starting a family. But at the same time, you've had this bizarre wake-up call about, I guess, your mortality and the vulnerability and just that, things can happen to you and they can be pretty scary and they can be life-threatening. And so you suddenly feel older than everyone around you at the same time as feeling behind them all. And so that's the warping that happens. And eventually it all mashes and meshes up and everyone's in the same place again, just because no one's in the same place anymore. And so it's all fine in the end. But it's definitely true that even though being diagnosed with cancer is a big thing, it's not the only thing that happens. You're just like everybody else. You still get upset and you cry when you get dumped. You still freak out when you come home and the dishes haven't been done yet and you really hoped that they would have been. Or if the cat poops in the dining room. They're the same normal stressors that everybody has, and we're not at this extra super natural level of being able to deal with everything else in life just because we've been told that we've had cancer and we've gotten through it. We're just like everybody else, and so just having had cancer does not mean that nothing else bad happens at some other point. There are a lot of resources out there that we can find each other and reach out, and there's some chat rooms, there are listservs, there are support groups specific to young adults with cancer at different community-based cancer support centers throughout the country. And then there are programs and projects like the Chasing Rainbows DVD. And I remember the first time that someone suggested that I watch it, and I was so afraid to watch this DVD, and I put it off because I just didn't know what to expect, and I didn't want to relive any of the fears or the down times that I had. And so even as a safeguard, I decided to finally watch it, but have it playing while I was preparing dinner so I could tune it out if I had to. And I just remember actually turning it on and watching it all the way through, because it was probably the most honest portrayal I had seen of stories of young adults. And everyone was laughing or crying or contradicting each other, or when someone says something that someone else didn't agree with, there were no one held any punches, and everyone was just honest with each other, and it was so refreshing. And I think that is what we need when we've been diagnosed or we're going through treatment. We need a forum where we can just be ourselves and we don't have to pretend for anybody. And someone's going to say something that you're not going to like, and it's fine. You can tell them that straight out and then say your bit. And the important thing is that you've each had a chance to say your thing. I think a really good example of why it's good to seek out support from people who've been through something similar is my little brother was also diagnosed with thyroid cancer probably about 8 years after I was. And I remember he told me that he would be a lot more scared if he hadn't seen me get through it. And so of course you feel, that hits you really hard when it's your own sibling. But I think it's special too when you hear other people say it to you, and when you can feel it and you feel the appreciation by hearing someone else's story and knowing that someone else has been through something like what you're going through, and that they're okay, or even if they're not okay, that they're at peace with what it is that they've been through. Because the reality is that not all of us do get through this. And it's really important, though, that we do our best to make sure that everyone reaches a point where they feel okay. And it's almost impossible, but a really important way of getting there, and a big part of it is just by not feeling alone.